the character of Mace Windu is perhaps most well known for his purple lightsaber. In many ways, it's the character's most famous feature. But there are different materials in Legends where Mace is seen not with a purple lightsaber blade, but with a blue one and an entirely different hilt. In this video expose, we'll look at Mace Windu's blue lightsaber, pointing to the Legends lore that explains why the Jedi Master would utilize this blue blade during a brief period around the events of Episode 1, rather than his traditional purple lightsaber. We'll first start by mentioning a story that most Star Wars fans are aware of. Going into Episode 2, Samuel L. Jackson, of course, the actor who portrayed Mace Windu, approached George Lucas with the idea that Mace should have a purple lightsaber. This was supposedly to help the actor stand out in the Geonosis Arena battle scene, where the traditional green and blue lightsabers were everywhere. It would also just be cool to have your own rare lightsaber color distinguishing you from other Jedi in the films. At first, Lucas denied Jackson's request, favoring that Mace use the traditional blue or green blade. But he ultimately relented, and Mace was given the distinct purple lightsaber in Attack of the Clones. One might think that this exchange and difference between Episode 1 and Episode 2 is what led to a change in Mace's lightsaber. Perhaps the original plan was to always give Mace a blue lightsaber. At the end of the Phantom Menace, Mace is clearly seen with a lightsaber hilt that's different from the purple lightsaber seen in Episodes 2 and 3. Moreover, this hilt owned by Mace in Episode 1 perfectly matches his blue lightsaber seen on the cover and throughout the 4-issue comic series Jedi Council Acts of War, which was released in the year 2000, only 1 year after the Phantom Menace. Therefore, it could simply be that Mace originally had a blue lightsaber with a different hilt, and then this changed when Lucas okayed Jackson's request for a purple lightsaber. The thinking being that 10 years passed in the timeline of the films, and any number of things could have happened in-universe to explain the difference between Episode 1 and Episode 2. I mean, as Star Wars fans, we have to understand that changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them.
Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them. Changes happen and we just have to accept them.
But here's the thing. While this might explain some of the behind-the-scenes aspects of Mace Windu's lightsaber in the total scheme of things, there's an extremely detailed explanation within Legends for why Mace Windu had a blue lightsaber and different hilt for a brief period that included the events of the Phantom Menace. So as lovers of the Legends, let's take a look at the lore that explains why Mace has this lightsaber hilt in the Phantom Menace and a blue lightsaber blade in a number of comics released before Attack of the Clones. We'll start with what might appear to be the most obvious. In Legends, Mace simply did have a blue lightsaber. For those Jedi studying to become a Jedi Sentinel, and also looking to tap into their creativity as a central pillar of the will of the Force, they could take up the specialization of a Jedi Artisan. These Jedi Knights would focus on any number of crafts, but typically, they pursued the construction of lightsabers, using their talents to build the weapon of the Jedi. One notable Jedi artisan in the years prior to the Clone War was the Duros male Felanil Box, who built lightsaber hilts using crystal, wood, and stone. It was this well-known Jedi artisan who would gift Mace with a special lightsaber containing a blue blade. So then I guess that answers that. The blue blade and different lightsaber hilts seen in Episode 1 and within the comics is just the blue lightsaber Mace would use from time to time after it was gifted to him. Well, not quite. First, apparently setting aside all acceptable forms of etiquette, Mace regifted the blue lightsaber given to him by the Jedi Artisan, making his possession of it quite fleeting. But even more important, we know that this isn't that particular blue blade. In fact, those with a keen eye will immediately recognize the hilt seen in Episode 1 and in the comic Acts of War. Now, where have I seen this lightsaber before? That's right, it belongs to Jedi Master Eeth Koth. And I don't mean it simply looks like his, I mean it is literally the lightsaber of Master Koth. So why does Mace Windu have Eeth Koth's lightsaber? Like many great things in Legends, there's an answer for that. First, let's point out that the comic Acts of War, released in the summer of 2000, and where Mace is clearly seen with a blue lightsaber, details events that occurred only months before the Phantom Menace. Therefore, it's really only a brief period where Mace has a blue-bladed lightsaber that had previously belonged to Eeth Koth. And fortunately, the explanation for the exchange of lightsabers between the two Jedi Masters is provided in issue number 13 of the 1998 Star Wars comic released in December 1999, in an arc entitled Emissaries to Malastare. In the first issue of this arc, which takes place only a few months after the events of the Phantom Menace, we see the Jedi High Council convene to address a peacekeeping mission upon the mid-rim planet of Malastare. Eventually, 6 High Council members, including Mace, would volunteer for the mission. But before the members go their separate ways, Mace asks for the attention of the Masters, wishing for the High Council to witness a matter between himself and Master Koth. At that point, Mace pulled out an object wrapped in cloth, which is revealed to be the lightsaber of Eeth Koth. Through Mace's words during this small ceremony, it becomes clear that Master Koth had lent Mace his lightsaber, which Mace was now returning to its rightful owner. We then see Eeth Koth do the same thing, taking the lightsaber in his possession and handing it back to its rightful original owner in Mace. And with that, the exchange was complete. As we learn next from Yoda, Mace and Koth had just completed an ancient Jedi tradition, known as the concordance of fealty. This tradition saw a Jedi exchange their lightsaber with another member of the Order, entrusting their weapon to that Jedi. This was done as a mutual learning exercise to trust another member of the Order, where the exchange of lightsabers represented a sacred bond between the two Jedi. It's also the perfect retcon for this situation, and explains why we see Mace with a blue lightsaber and different hilt in Episode 1 and within the Acts of War comic. During the few months that are represented in these materials, Mace was engaged in the concordance of fealty, meaning he had the lightsaber of Eeth Koth, and Eeth Koth had the lightsaber of Mace Windu. When the ancient tradition was complete and the exchange was over, all was right again in the universe. Mace had his traditional purple lightsaber blade and hilt, and Eeth Koth had his hilt and blue lightsaber blade, which would magically turn green at some other point in the lore, a question to be answered in a future video perhaps. So there we have it, why Mace Windu briefly used a blue lightsaber in Legends. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter, @SW Reading Club, for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon for access to exclusive rewards and discussions. If not for me... for things happening and then accepting them.